Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cabral Concept. So good to have you here today. All the show notes, the big takeaways will be at stephencabral.com/3112. Today we're going to be talking about the signs, the specific signs you may be showing, and hopefully you're not, but good to know for you, family members, loved ones, or if you're a practitioner in your practice. But making sure that you're not showing these signs of chronic stress and anxiety. Many people don't even know that chronic stress is affecting them, unfortunately, until it's too late, until they filled up that rain barrel, until it's overflowed, until they're diagnosed with a disease. But extremely important, we're going to go through those today and then, of course, give you a way to begin to heal. Because we don't want to just share with you all the negatives, but also how we turn this into a positive, how we can change our lives for the better to improve our energy, our mood, and our overall vitality, and really, I call it zest for life, but wanting to be a part of life. So let's dive right into it. There are physical symptoms, and there are also emotional and psychological symptoms. Some of the chronic symptoms of stress, we'll get into anxiety in a moment, but chronic stress from a physical standpoint can be headaches, muscle tension or stiffness, a lot of times in our neck or our lower back and hips, fatigue. So it can cause chronic fatigue over time. We're just exhausted. Include brain fog that in that as well. You might include that in the psychological, but definitely brain fog. You're just kind of cloudy thinking. Sleep disturbances, waking throughout the night, not able to fall asleep because our mind is racing. Digestive issues. So stress, without a doubt, is more of the fight or flight sympathetic nervous system, which means you're not then in the rest and relax and digest, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. So it can lead to issues like loose stool or constipation or IBS-based symptoms. It can lead to cardiovascular issues like accelerated heart rate, heart palpitations, or even chest pain, which is not good. The immune system can become suppressed, namely something called secretory IgA, which is our first line of defense against viruses. You might get sick more often. And then also skin problems, because it can absolutely imbalance our gut and our hormones, leading to sometimes unexplained rashes, as well as adult-based acne. Okay, so those are the main physical signs of stress. The emotional signs and psychological symptoms of chronic stress would be irritability. So I always say this to people. So if you are suffering from long-term chronic stress, if you are irritable, if you are anxious, or if you are overwhelmed. So that's, again, like I always say that to people, meaning like you're in a state of high alert chronic stress. And then of course, until you burn out, then you're just apathetic. You just like don't care about, even traveling or doing something amazing or whatever it is, just because you're so burnt out. But before that, you're overwhelmed, you're irritable, you're anxious. And with that, you can have mood swings, sometimes wild highs and lows. And as I said before, a little bit more of that cognitive decline, even though it's not Alzheimer's, it's not dementia, just like you're just so overwhelmed. You're like, where did I put my keys? Like, who was I supposed to call? What was I supposed to do? That's not dementia. That is high levels of cortisol and norepinephrine and stress, right? That's what it is. But left unchecked can lead to those diseases, because we know high cortisol can unfortunately lead to dementia, Alzheimer's, but it can also lead to depression. So we have to be careful with this. We want to know these signs, then what we can do. I'll share with you what to do in just a moment. But let's go over some physical symptoms now of anxiety. All right, there's definitely overlap, so just kind of keep that in mind. But the accelerated heart rate, the worry can lead to, the increased anxiety and worry can lead to the accelerated heart rate, can lead to trembling, like hands are trembling, can lead to sweating. Why? These are all signs of increased adrenaline or norepinephrine. That's the truth. Shortness of breath, lightheadedness, nausea. Why? Drop in blood sugar, greater production cortisol. And then at the same time, if you are trying to calm your body and you're tense at the same time, it can lead to lightheadedness, like dizziness. People kind of get am I coming or going? I don't know. And that's kind of like the wooziness. All right. And the last part is just the consistent and chronic muscle tension and pain that sometimes shows up in the upper trapezius muscles of the neck and shoulders. Okay. Sometimes gut as well. All right. And the last part with the emotional, psychological symptoms of anxiety, not just chronic stress, is the excessive worry, restlessness, so kind of like on edge or bouncing your knee or foot, irritability, fear of losing control or just losing everything. That's a big worry. Panic attacks, avoiding certain situations or people that's a real sign of anxiety, right? Because you're like, no, I can't go there, that this person might be there, or this may happen. Intrusive thoughts. This means that you're having unwanted thoughts that you can't control, and they're happening over and over. And this is chronic, right? More than 3-4 weeks at a time becomes chronic, typically over 6 weeks maximum, or 6 weeks. When that happens, that's considered chronic. And then, as I said, high alert, which is sometimes referred to as high vigilance. That is a just massive drain of energy in the body that eventually wears you out. So what happens though? This is really important. And like, how do we then actually look at this? So one of the big things that we did and we do in our practice, and I have this for my team and my coaches, is we begin to look at specific ways. You can do it with lab testing, and I'm going to share with you that in a moment, but also like what might be going wrong. So just think about this. If your body's more in fight or flight or chronic stress, you're producing more cortisol, more norepinephrine, and as a result, most likely, many women will become estrogen dominant, so low levels of progesterone, which then leads to sleep disturbances, low mood, low energy, low libido, mood swings, irritability, sometimes night sweats, and that is, yes, from low progesterone, but what happens is they feel like they have high estrogen, and it's really from elevated levels of cortisol. Men and some women can experience low testosterone, low DHEA, so poor immunity, poor ambition, poor drive, poor recovery from workouts. And then thyroid begins to plummet. And so then we have lowered metabolic rate, so poor circulation, cold hands, cold feet, hair begins to thin, especially in the crown of the head, top of the head, outer edge of the eyebrows, dry skin, brain fog, low mood, low energy. Like, again, like these are very in line with exactly what happens when you're under chronic stress. And of course, it hurts the sleep, and blood sugar levels become destabilized or unstable. So that's a problem. So what do we look for? Well, we look for all those hormones and high levels of cortisol on one lab called the stress mood and metabolism test. Take it right at home. So it's really straightforward. You can find the one that I use in my practice at stephencabral.com/hormones-test. Or everything is just at stephencabral.com/shop. That takes you over to Equalife. That's my private practice along with my team. So you can find everything there. But what we do recommend, if possible, is running the Big Five. That looks at all your vitamins, all your minerals, looks at your omega-6 to omega-3s for inflammation, looks at all your hormones, food sensitivity. So it does a lot. Now, why would I mention the other labs? Okay, so when you become chronically stressed, you deplete your B vitamins. So that is vital because your B vitamins are called the anti-stress vitamin family. They help combat stress. Well, if you're low on B vitamins, how can you combat stress? You may also be low on magnesium from a functional perspective. When you're low on magnesium, you can't buffer stress. You can't buffer the sympathetic nervous system. And calcium also stays in your bloodstream longer. Well, why does that matter? It can harden your arteries, cause cardiovascular disease, stenosis in the future. So not good, right? These things don't happen overnight. Your conventional medicine doctor will never tell you that, but this is how this works. This is why this is a multi-decade effect of chronic stress and poor health. And then mineral deficiencies. So we talked about magnesium. That's one. Chromium, especially for blood sugar. Potassium, needed to counteract sodium. That's a huge one, right? Because when you're stressed, I'm not going to go through the whole steroidal hormone pathway, but your body, as one of the stress hormones, increases a mineral corticoid or something called aldosterone, and aldosterone affects your sodium levels. So you start to retain more water, you feel puffier, but you're not really gaining as much body fat, but you are more swollen, right? So all of those things matter. So we look at these on the labs as well as heavy metals and other factors for inflammation that can kind of make this a vicious cycle and compound effects. So now you feel more inflamed, you feel worse. So now you're more stressed. You might eat more poorly. You might shy away from exercise because it makes you feel terrible because you're more inflamed the next day. So really looking at the Big Five is the best way to do it. The vitamin tox test, which is our starter kit, is another great way. And if you just want to look at your hormones, which is part of the Big Five, that's the stress, mood, and metabolism. Okay, so then we identify exactly what your underlying root causes are, and then we work on the whole de-stress protocol: the diet, exercise, stress reduction, toxin removal, rest, emotional balance, scientifically backed supplements, and the success mindset. So I talk about all those things in the rain barrel effect. It's literally as close to free as you can get. The book is at stephencabral.com. You can get on Amazon as well. And what I like to share as well, there are also things that you can begin to do right away. Now, I'd like you to run the labs first. So if you're going to run the labs first, run those to see what your baseline is. Then we'll begin to implement protocols like the sleep help support protocol if sleep's an issue. We might use something like Adrenal Soothe, as well as magnesium, full spectrum magnesium, for stress, and the activated B complex. But I like to tell people, those are add-ons on top of using either the daily nutritional support or the daily activated multivitamin, because you already then get all of your B vitamins, your vitamin C, all those great things that you need inside of it, okay? So that's crucial. And your daily omega-3s. That's the minimum, and I would add on the daily probiotic support. Now, besides that, you're adding your vitamin D3 if you're not maintaining a tan or if your vitamin D levels aren't between a 50 and a 70. So that's a broad overview. We're doing that. And then we're also saying to people, we need to fix sleep. We need to do all these things, but we need to find what are the real root cause of stress. Can you do talk therapy with an individual? Can you do something like, internal family systems therapy, or do something like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy that some people like to use? Or can you talk with someone who does regressive hypnosis with neurolinguistic programming? These are all things I've talked about on previous shows, but I like to work on both the mind and the body. And that's what I teach, the de-stress protocol. We teach that in depth in Integrative Health Practitioner Institute, but we have to really look at, and maybe you tuned into yesterday's show too, which is episode 3111, is understanding that when we connect the mind and the body, and we don't have to just work on one thing like just supplements or just diet or just exercise. When we work on all of it at once, it seems like it's overwhelming, but it's not. Because you actually don't need to be perfect then in any one of those. If you're just doing diet, you need to be absolutely perfect, right? If you're doing your supplements, you need to use a lot. Right? You really do. And so you don't want to over index on any one thing. You want to be like 80 to 90% on point with 8 things. And when you do that, that is when not only do you see the needle move, but you get lasting results that you can keep for life. That's ultimately what it's all about. So hopefully today was helpful. All the show notes today will be at stephencabral.com/3112. The big takeaways will be there. What I'd love you to be able to do is find out if at-home lab testing is right for you, get in a personalized plan, having someone walk you through all of this. That can be found at stephencabral.com/shop. Just takes you over to EcoLife. It's just a short link for that. And you'll be able to find the Big 5, the vitamin tox test, which is our starter kit, or whatever speaks to you. Maybe the stress, mood, and metabolism alone, that you look at your hormones, you look at your thyroid. Whatever works for you, we are here to help. Just let us know. I thank you. I appreciate you for being a part of this community. And of course, if the show was helpful, do feel free to share it with anyone else you believe it could serve. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you're getting our daily content, not missing out on anything. Functional medicine, wellness, weight gain, weight loss, anti-aging, living longer, stronger, and all of the most cutting-edge research. And if there's any topics you want to hear, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Take care.